Hello, everyone. Welcome to Divine Discussions, sponsored by the Angel News Network. I'm Joel Anastasi with channel Phillip Collins.
Hello.
And each week, Phillip channels divine spirit from a higher dimension. And they usually come in with a little teaching, and then we have a question and answer session where I can follow up with some questions asking about what they've taught. Would you like to add anything, Phillip?
Yeah, usually what I'm connecting with is a band of consciousness or a realm of consciousness or energy more than the word spirit, which can be misconstrued. So if you'll just give me a moment, I'll go into trance and see what teachings are going to be coming into our frequency of 3D at this time. Greetings, beloved. This is the ascended mastership realm of Saint Germain coming to you at this time in your evolutionary path as a planet and as a species of humanity. Today, we would like to speak to you about your connection to realms such as ourself and the realms of Source, the I Am Presence, God, whichever you would like to call it. Again, we would like to speak to you about your connection to the realms and the source that maintain and sustain you. It is this aspect of self that humanity is in the process of rediscovering, awakening, if you will, to at this time. Your divine connection to all that there is. For you are the arms, the legs, the feet, the lips, the thoughts, the emotions, if you will, of Source. That is your reason to be here. The connection to Source, the connection to the I Am, if you will, allows you to escalate, to advance into a state of golden agehood, if you will. There have been 6 previous golden ages on this particular planet that were maintained and sustained through the connection to all that there is. Realms and bands of consciousness such as ourself and beyond, enlightened, taught, and protected these past golden ages. The disconnect to Source, the disconnect to the higher realm, was the reason for the distillation or the ending of these previous golden ages. So what you're in the process of remembering is the connection to these. But what makes it different, if you will, from past ages is that it is your soul plan, your planetary and species soul plan, to develop a permanent connection to Source, a permanent connection to the I Am. And why is that, dear ones? The reason for that is because of this phase of the ascension process that your planet and your species upon the planet, as well as the elementals, as well as the minerals, as well as the plants and animals, are involved in at this time. You're all in the process of returning to beings of light, which are directly connected and maintained and sustained to life substances from Source. So your planet is in the process of returning to a being of light, thus you are as well. And many of you have heard the term moving from your dense carbon-based reality to a crystalline light reality, reconstructing your DNA, reawakening certain aspects of what is called junk, or now is known as spiritual DNA. You have heard about connecting your 7 existing chakra systems to 5 additional higher chakra systems, 8 through 12, if you will, moving further and further back, further and further up, rather, into the connection to Source. So with all of these events taking place, your awakening of your spiritual DNA, your reconnecting to your higher chakra systems, all of this, all the purpose, meaning, and value of these events is to allow you to be permanently connected to I Am Presence, to be currently and continuously connected to the Source, a life substance that maintains and sustains you, and realize that all of your thoughts and your emotions and your beingness has been an expression of this source. In effect, your divinity, dear ones. So it is a wonderful, exciting time. Much is going on. Portals and vortices throughout your world are opening with wisdoms and reminders to support this process. Ancient teachings are coming forward again to assist and facilitate you moving into this permanent connection to the I Am, this permanent connection to Source, which you are an aspect, a representative, an essential being part of, dear ones. So, having laid this platform, this foundation, we'd like to open up to truth. We'd like to open up to questions and answers that can be revealed through the truth of what we are speaking of at this time, and knowing through your participation, through your questions and our answers, the learning process, the integration process of being able to accept and more deeply understand and incorporate and integrate what's being said can take place. How may we help you, dear ones?
Well, welcome, and thank you for joining us.
You're welcome, dear one.
I'm going to be asking questions from a very innocent place. It'll be 10 years tomorrow that I conducted my first interview with Gabriel. That was my first exposure to a spiritual entity from another dimension. And he told me to proceed as a little child. I feel comfortable doing that.
And why would you think he would say that, dear one? What would be the meaning in being as a little child, dear one? What would that mean to you?
Well, in my innocence, I had the courage to be able to ask. I didn't understand much, and I knew that, so I came from a place where I could ask anything fearlessly.
Exactly, because the defenses, the ego defenses of the child are not fully formed and defended. So the child is open, and as has been discussed in previous divine discussions, the elements of fear, doubt, and ignorance are the monster elements of humanity that have kept you in lack and imitation, have kept you in duality and confrontation. So the child has less of the fear, less of the doubt, and an openness to learn, dear one.
Well, I think I naturally come from that place because I ask a lot of basic questions. I've discovered that when I ask a simple, basic question, spiritual entities like you use it as a platform to give all kinds of wisdom. So I ask some pretty simple things, and I'm about to do that because what you just covered in review, I am fairly familiar with because I've been reading this material almost every day, and I read the messages that come through you and other ascended masters and other spiritual entities through various channels. But I can hardly think of more than a handful of people where I could discuss what you just said and they would have any idea what I'm talking about. And the reason why I'm saying it is because, yes, I think we're at the threshold of a new age, and yes, all these things are happening, and yes, I have a sense of that. But almost none of my family do, almost none of my friends do, and very few of my acquaintances do. That in a way it saddens me, and in a way I feel frustrated because I feel like there's so much work to do, and I just need to express, the feelings I have about that.
And much of humanity is in the place that you have described. So what you are expressing is your need to be in residence with communities of like-spirited, like-minded individuals who are on a similar position, if you will, a similar point on their life path as you are. And that's what will take place. You will follow and be directed towards those of like resonance, will you not, dear one?
Yes.
So that is the purpose of it. We will support you, we will guide you through that process. So as you resonate with the higher realm messages and tools and teachings which you have been involved with for quite some time now, the individuals that you choose to spend time with, to create endeavors with, are those that resonate on a similar point in their path, dear ones. There's no right or wrong in this. The destination will ultimately be the same.
Could we talk a little bit about guidance? Because I have really only recently really begun in a regular way to turn to my guides and ask for their support and guidance. What counsel would you give those who are watching who really could benefit from the guidance of the higher dimensions? What would you counsel us to do to get more guidance?
First and foremost, through your freedom of choice and your freedom of will, to use your own discernment. Allow your discernment, your resonance, your inner gyro system, if you will, allow you to know what is truth for you, and not to be guided to anything that does not resonate for you. So assuming what is happening now you are resonating with, then you can listen to the words, the teachings, the resonance of the words and teaching, and apply them, dear ones.
What guides, I'm asking questions where I probably would be able to supply an answer, maybe probably just a fragment of what you would say. What kind of guidance is available to us? Those who are seeking to learn, from the higher dimensions. What guidance is available?
The guidance is for you to fully know who you are. The guidance is to fully know why you are here. The guidance is to recognize your uniqueness. The guidance is for you to know your divinity, thus in turn your connection and relationship with creation, and have that as a platform or a foundation to create service to your world, to yourself, to one another, to your solar system, to your galaxy, and to the universe at large, dear one. It is a limitless, ever-expanding, ever-growing process. Does that help you?
Now, do I have guides that, I'll put it this way for lack of a better way to do it. Do I have a guide, does each soul have guides that are assigned to them?
Your higher self is the most important aspect of yourself. Your thoughts and your emotions are a denser version of that higher aspect and that less important aspect of yourself. But you're moving through a timeline ending of the lesser aspects of humanity that have created discord and often destruction to end and go into a more constructive format of expression of self. As many of you have been taught for a long time, the loving relationship with self is the foundation of all. And allowing that in the mirror and picture out into your world is essential.
Now, there may be people who don't know when you make a reference to the higher self, they may not understand what their higher self is. Can we tell them what that, how would you define that for them?
Your higher self, dear one, is your eternal beingness that never dies. It is the portion of you that collects the information from every incarnational cycle that you've had, reviews it, decides what you have to learn, what you have not learned, and what you need to still learn in your process of moving into higher realms and service to all that there is. That is your higher self, dear one.
Well, that sounds like such a valuable resource. Now, how would you counsel people to be in connection, in contact with their higher self so that they can get this guidance?
First and foremost, to recognize that it exists, and to then, through that acceptance and compassion for it and gratitude for it, develop a direct communication with that aspect of yourself which is eternal, which always serves your highest good and the highest good of all, dear one.
Now, the Ascended Masters and others have talked about the fact that there is a lot of control of our world that we're not aware of, and that we don't truly understand, that we're nearly as free, that we're not nearly as free as we think we are, and that that is being dispelled, more transparency is coming into our world. We're becoming more and more aware of this. We've been hearing for the first time in quite a while some pretty bellicose dialogues between North Korea and other and Japan and the United States that's even threatening war and nuclear war and so on, which would of course conceivably have a cataclysmic effect on mankind. What would you say about the role the individuals like us and those who would be hearing can play in bringing another level of consciousness to counter this kind of bellicose communication?
To understand how it happens and why it happens within the individual or the nation reflected within this individual or the leaders of this nation reflected, you are dealing with a child who is asking, who is screaming, if you will, to be loved, to be liked, to be supported. And if these needs could actually be understood through the bellicose threats, if you will, and to understand that this is a wounded child who is bringing defenses that in this case he has created in a position of leadership that can affect his entire country or possibly the entire world, to understand in your negotiations and communications with this being, to simply sit down with him and ask him, what do you need? What is it that you fundamentally need? And you will find it is the same needs that everyone else has, dear one.
That's the same kind of exercise that we have in the Life Mastery Program, where we talk to our own wounded child. And
exactly. Exactly. You have a group, if you will, of wounded, often masculine energy little boys running around with big toys, bellowing, love me, like me, accept me, I want to be like you. So
almost all the conflict in the world really has a lot, virtually springs from the woundedness that we contain in ourselves.
That is the process you're going through in this golden age, so that those in leadership, those who are in leadership, if you will, in higher realms, are spiritually astute enough to have healed and processed permanently the aspects of self that we are describing now, so that they cannot bring that into higher realms. It is simply not allowed. Soon you will create a world where that behavior will simply not be allowed.
We've been talking about the personal responsibility that each one of us has as a soul as this New Age approaches. Are you able to make any observations to us about the consciousness of the leadership that we have in our own country and elsewhere? That, of course, is an important role to play in the opening consciousness of the world population. How enlightened do we have some enlightened figures on the international scene, including our own president?
There are various degrees of the ascension process within each individual divine soul plan, so it would take a long time to go through each and every one. But just generally we would say it is that loving relationship with self that allows you to move from a healed narcissistic me awareness into a healed we consciousness, which you are familiar with this term, and allow that united union of your entire planet, that the national boundaries that you have, the linguistic boundaries that you have, that the economic, that the religious, that the sexual preference, whatever these boundaries may be, are disappearing. And you are moving into an aspect of a union of the planet into oneness. Now this is a process that will take time in your realm, but is a process that is essential for you all to see yourselves interconnected. What affects one affects another. And there will be certain aspects of your planet such as the union of America, if you will, and the Americas at large, that can serve as a way shore into this final golden age. There's certain vortices and portals and energetic openings taking place in certain geographic locations that will help with the resonance, will help create this united planet rather than a large group of individuated nations fighting for their identity. Does that help you, dear one?
Yes, we've been teaching it, we've been receiving at the Angel News Network the teachings from the Archangelic realm of Michael about this giant movement from me consciousness to we consciousness, and that's really what you're talking about as we approach this golden age.
It is the essential process of moving into your final golden age, moving from the me, which is driven by the altered ego, which is driven by emotions, which is driven by thoughts, and moving into your higher self, connected to source, where those lower aspects of self no longer exist.
And it comes back to those teachings that are now thousands of years old. Love one another.
Indeed. And how has that actually taken place?
Well, we know, don't we? It's been the history of mankind. Well, Saint Germain, thank you so much for joining us. Is there anything else you want to say to our audience?
Just be aware of this wonderful divine process of connecting with your higher self, your divine self, the DNA transformations that are taking place, the chakra transformations that are taking place, the geographic portals and vortices that are opening up. It is indeed a blessed opportunity to move into the most enlightened and delighted aspect of you and your world that has ever been.
Thank you.